This is the Commonwealth, where we feature creators of disruptive change. Today, we are talking with Noah Floersch. Noah is an indie pop musician with 100,000 Spotify followers, and his songs have been streamed over 5 million times on Spotify alone. Noah, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yes, I'm very excited to talk with you. You're the first person I've interviewed for the show that I'm like a fan of their work. A bunch of your songs are going to be in my like most played tracks of 2021 already. So.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. Thank you so much. That
Yes,
makes me smile a lot.
Okay, so to start with, Noah, the thing I might be most curious about is you are a marketing major.
Yes.
Pursuing a creative career.
Yes.
And I was a marketing major in college and am now in podcasting. And there was not like a podcasting class when I went to college. So how did you decide to be a marketing major? And then what are you learning there that is applicable for music?
That is a really good question. I've never had that question before, but it totally, okay, there's a lot of like actually overlap in like the creative industry and like the marketing industry, especially when you're an independent artist who needs to like market themselves. But let me get into how I got into marketing first.
Okay, fair enough.
So I'm a student at University of Nebraska Lincoln.
Okay.
And before my freshman year, I was very up in the air about what I wanted to do with my life, and I had no idea. But in high school, I really, really fell in love with music, and maybe we'll talk about that a little bit more later.
For sure.
But I decided I would get into music composition here at the university in the Glencore School of Music. And so my freshman year, I spent the entirety of that year as a music major. And don't get me wrong, it was really, really cool, and I loved it a lot, and it was a very solid program. And the composition department is like pretty incredible. But I was not really writing the stuff I wanted to write. In high school, I really fell in love with songwriting, and in the music school, I was writing string quartets and piano cello duets and things like that. And so it wasn't really my style. And so after that first year, I switched over to a marketing major kind of on a whim. I was just like, well, I'm not really liking the music that I'm creating right now. Let's like switch it up a little bit. And so I did that, and ended up not necessarily falling in love with marketing, but like realizing that like it was highly applicable to presenting myself to an audience.
Okay.
And like learning a lot of like the skills I was learning in terms of like selling a business or like digital marketing, they all started to like lock into place as like being really, really helpful marketing myself.
Okay. Like how so? Like,
yeah. So like understanding like, for example, like something that you talk about in marketing classes, in your intro to marketing classes up until like your advanced like 400 level classes is like market segmentation and figuring out like which groups your product, I guess, satisfies. And my product is the music that I make. And you can look at like your social media analytics. Spotify and Apple Music all have artist analytics that they distribute to their artists.
Yeah.
And you can look at like the demographics of people who are listening to you. So like I can tell you right now, like about 35 to 40% of my audience is male. 60% is female, and then like 2% is like non-binary or other.
Okay.
Right now, I can tell you that the biggest age range of folks that listen to me are like 18 to 20, but I still have like a sizable market above that and below that, like in terms of people that enjoy my music. And I can tell you from like just experience alone, and like people that have reached out to me, moms seem to really love my music. Yeah, like I like even my mom's friends, who are all like moms of my friends, like growing up, like will just be like, oh my gosh, I love this new song that you put out, and it's like, thanks, Mrs. Smith or whoever is, which is always just like a funny thing, but it always seems to be like people our age, and like a lot that was more of a funny like side quip, but it is like an interesting pattern to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And then how does that relate to? Does that change the music you make?
No.
Okay.
I don't like that. That's I think a very easy trap to fall into.
Okay.
and that's where music and business definitely are different.
Yeah.
Because if you're a business and you're looking at these analytics, it's like, okay, like let's pivot and like start targeting this market, or let's position ourselves in such a way that we become more attractive to this market by changing our product or changing our brand image or something like that. I think as an artist, it's really, really important to like stay true to yourself. It's nice to know what kind of people like jive with that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, if to me, it feels very inauthentic to pivot, like,
Make mom
who you
music.
are as a person.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And it differs from person to person and artist to artist as well. Like, you see a lot of like big name pop artists, they definitely like are not the same person on stage and off stage, or in front of the cameras and not in front of the cameras, which is like totally cool and totally fine that they have like this alternate persona, because that's a part of the industry.
Yeah. So Spotify gives podcasts similar like listener demographic, and the one of the top artists that our audience listens to when they're not listening to the Commonwealth is Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
And you can see what you just said with Taylor Swift's like recent releases, how she's going back to old songs and remaking them just because like the label and like so many people affected the final outcome of those like original hits. So yeah, it's inspiring to see you being true to yourself and being like insistent on not changing the art you create.
And the whole Taylor thing is another great like indication that like having some sort of business background can really, really be helpful in any industry, but music especially, because oftentimes like record labels and large music companies oftentimes like can and oftentimes do screw over like these young artists, and that's exactly what happened to Taylor. And I'm very like, it's kudos to her for like re-recording all her stuff and like kind of like gaining that property back almost in a sense, even though she like never had an opportunity to like buy it back, which she should have.
Yeah.
I think it, like business talk, like maybe not, because maybe there were better offers somewhere else, but like morally, I think that was like pretty terrible what they did to her.
Yeah.
And then she got like slandered for, I don't know.
Yes.
But I think hats off to she's probably shout out Taylor Swift.
Yeah. Hopefully she's listening. So when did you mentioned falling in love with music in high school? When did you start making music?
Yeah. So even before high school, this is probably like 7th or 8th grade. I got a banjo.
Okay.
And the reason I got a banjo was, so my oldest brother, when he went off to college, he got like a banjo as a parting gift from my parents. They were like, here's like a fun little side project. You can like learn how to play the banjo while you're off in college. And like, at that time we were like really into like Mumford & Sons and like new age like folk pop kind of stuff.
Okay.
Which is like, that was kind of like the thing back then. So I was like, dang, my oldest brother has a banjo. That's really cool. I want a banjo. And so I ended up getting one for Christmas, which is sweet, but also a really stupid first instrument to start with, because it's very hard to learn. And so I got really, really frustrated really, really quickly with it, because I thought like right away I'd be able to just like shred like the guys in Mumford & Sons did. And I never could. And I would try to learn their songs, and I couldn't get the picking down or anything like that. So I just started like writing my own songs, because I could actually play my own songs, because I only knew like 4 or 5 chords.
Okay.
And that's how the songwriting got started, and like the actual like music creation, rather than just like playing stuff that had already been written.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't play the stuff that had already been written. And I think that's like definitely a theme that's like persisted. Like, I am not a terribly good instrumentalist at anything that I play. And now I play probably like 4 or 5 instruments, but all just like very poorly. Like enough to write and enough to sometimes record, depending on the instrument. But like, it's just like a great way for me to create, you know?
Yeah. So when did you start thinking of yourself as an artist? Because a lot of times those two things are disconnected. That
Right.
even though you're making art, you don't think of yourself as an artist.
That was, I mean, even now, I have a hard time like solidifying in my own head that I am one.
Interesting.
Because like, I don't know, I guess like growing up, the people you listen to, even when they are like small independent artists, in my head I was always like, these people are on like another plane. Like they're just like this next level, I don't know, kind of people. And then I have like people that will like reach out to me and say like, hey dude, like you're great. And then I'm like, oh, maybe I am to this like 15-year-old what someone else was to me when I was 15.
Oh,
know?
I mean, you most definitely are.
Which
With
is
5
like
million
cool,
plays.
but that's
yeah.
also like hard to like, because nothing has really changed for me. Like I'm still like just in school, you know.
Yeah,
like I'm just like waking up at 10 and being like, oh, I should have got up at 8, and like I'm just like a regular guy still. I feel
okay, fair enough.
So I don't really feel like I'm like an artist yet. I hope that like the move to Nashville will like maybe put me more in that like space. But right now, like my biggest concerns this week are like the tests that I have coming up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. I definitely like started considering like music as a career, like right towards the end of high school.
Okay.
So like I knew that it was something that you could do. But even now, I can't believe I'm doing it.
Yeah. Yes. Have there been any other moments like that, like the person reaching out, that 15-year-old reaching out, and it was like a sense of like surrealness around your music career, like when your most played Spotify track has like 1.8 million?
Yeah, it's real.
That's
close
a lot.
to
That seems like a lot. As that grew, was there any like sense of surrealness?
Yeah, I think there are like definitely like milestones that you hit as you kind of like make your way up the artist ladder. Like 1 million streams on a song was a really, really big one. I like threw a pizza party for my roommates. We were like, "Woo, we did it!" And like that was it.
Yeah.
But I think another really big one is like was landing like a Spotify. Landing on like a Spotify playlist, not like a user-generated playlist, but like a Spotify editorial playlist.
Okay.
That's like a weird thing that like matters more for artists than like non-artists, because you don't really like it's very difficult to get on an editorial playlist.
How did you do it? Just like besides
song,
quality of music.
Yeah,
I'm sure
the song "On Your Mind" was out for a year and some change before it ever got picked up. It got like a bunch of love from some TikTok playlist. This account called Live to Create on TikTok picked it up, and they're like, one of their main goals for like one of their summer campaigns was to like make this really heavily followed Spotify playlist. And I was like one of the first folks on that.
Okay.
And like Spotify definitely noticed that playlist and was like, oh, we like this song from it, and put it on they put it on like Fresh Finds Pop.
Okay.
And like the regular Fresh Finds. And it was only on there for like a week or 2 weeks, but it was like really cool.
Yeah,
like
I can believe that.
Those
That's
were like
cool.
the most streams I'd ever had, because those playlists are just like huge. And so that was like really, really cool. But it's also, you don't want to get too caught up in the numbers. So like recognizing
absolutely.
those milestones, very, very cool. But like, don't dwell on it too long.
Yeah.
Work on your next piece of art or whatever. So those were all like pretty surreal moments. I think like one of my favorite stories of like where I was like really recognized as an artist was someone like bought me a drink at like the bars. They were like, dude, my like girlfriend really loves your music. What's up? I'm so and so. Let me get you a drink. And that was like a really cool thing that happened like back in like last February or last March, and that was just whoa, very cool. You know, I don't know, it's stuff like that.
Interesting that the drink did it for you. But yes, okay, amazing. So Noah, the Lincoln Journal-Star, which is the local newspaper, did a write-up on you, and they asked what some of your long-term goals were, and you listed win a Grammy and go on a world tour. Those are like very just ambitious and big, like they're both big hairy goals. In that process, what do you hope your music accomplishes?
Whoa, that's a very good question, man. I'm loving this interview. I definitely am not someone who plans super far in advance.
Okay.
Never have I ever been that kind of person. But I definitely do dream big.
Okay.
And like I look at like milestones, like a Grammy, as like sort of like a precipice or a peak with which to shoot towards. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm the same way.
Will I ever get one? Who knows?
Yeah.
But I'd really love to have one, and I like to like set my trajectory in that direction at the very least.
Yes.
What I hope my music ends up accomplishing, that's something that like I've been having a really hard time defining, because it also goes into like who you want yourself to be. I guess a lot of the times, it's really hard to like write a song that like inspires people without coming off as too corny or anything like that. So I shy away from like the idea of just like, oh, I want my music to like inspire people, because I feel like in artist interviews you get that all the time. I just want people to like hear my music, hopefully enjoy it, and then whatever takeaway they get, I hope beyond anything else is a sense of like, oh, there's someone out there that also feels the same way about this particular thing, whether it be a relationship, whether it be like a story told, like a book of stories is an EP I did last summer, and I think I talked to the Lincoln Journal-Star about that.
Yeah.
And the question was like, what is the purpose of this EP? And it was just like to tell some stories. Like I write narratives sometimes, and it's not like to entertain. Like a lot of the times it's like a big part of the industry. Yes, I want people to like take away something from it and to be able to grow from whatever they're taking in from like my content and my music. But I don't think like, I don't know. I don't want to like put myself on a pedestal or anything by saying like, oh, I want my music to like change lives. If it does, sweet. And like, hopefully the world's a better place for it. But that's just kind of like the end goal of like being a person. Like no one wants to leave the world a worse place than when they found it in any industry, I feel like. Unless you're like a really greedy person. But no one like wakes up and is like, I'm going to be a bad guy today. You know, everyone thinks that they're good. And hopefully my music can do some good.
Yes, I didn't really know what to expect for your answer, but that fulfilled for like my fan Noah Floersch, fandom. It fulfilled that bucket.
I'm glad. It feels like finishing that answer felt like, oh my gosh, that was the biggest stream of consciousness ever, which is so lock in, because I feel like a lot of these answers will be that way. But that's how I feel about it.
Okay, so I've teed up my next question. I am anticipating a similar stream of conscious.
Sure.
So, a director or who helps you with your music videos, Mitchell Guinan, he is helping me create some content, and we're working on a project now. And he has produced and edited some of your work. So I had a call with him last night or 2 nights ago, and at the end I was like, hey, I'm talking to Noah, what questions would you ask?
Oh, nice.
And
okay.
And he said, make sure to ask about idioms. And I got a B- in my English class in high school. So I had to look up what an idiom was. And it's a word or phrase that isn't meant to be literal. So some examples: up in the air. When people say up in the air, it's not like something's not up in the air. It's like it's not a literal phrase. When it rains, it pours, and like the wind is biting. All of the ones I just listed are either song titles or lyrics from your songs. So why do idioms make good song lyrics?
Yeah. So this is actually like, I love songwriting. Okay. Songwriting is probably like what I do best. It's what I enjoy the most. In the music industry, like it's just the thing that compels me the most. So I do like different like writing exercises when I write, and when I'm going through dry spells, then you can like fall back on on those like writing exercises. And one that I found, it was really a pattern that I found in music. This is not like groundbreaking stuff. It's just like putting a name to it.
Okay.
Was that so many song choruses have to deal with like idioms. Now, obviously, like I'm really put on the spot right now, so I can't think of any aside from the ones that like I've done. But you could like definitely like you go back through and like look at like some of like the biggest pop hits from like the 2000s and 2010s, like, and pick apart those choruses. You'll definitely find idioms in there, which are just like phrases that make sense within your culture or your dialect or whatever, like up in the air. No, things are not literally up in the air. But that was, I have like a list of idioms on my phone. I might even pull some out here. Let me see what I have.
Okay.
But up in the air was one of the ones on there. I made like this list, and I was like, okay, these are, I have pop idioms right here. So like, up in the air was one of the ones that I wrote down on this list and ended up like running with that as an entire song that I wrote with Ross Grieve. And When It Rains It Pours is another one from my song Shelter. But pop idioms, let's just like list some so listeners kind of get an idea of
Yes.
Get the hang of it. Like that could, I'm getting the hang of it. Dun-dun, dun-dun, and then like Before You Know It is a really, really good one. Hit Me Up. Like Call Me or something like that. Like Hit Me Up could totally be like a chorus.
Or the
like,
name of a song.
Exactly. Sit Tight, Cut to the Chase, Piece of Cake, Cup of Tea, and Sweet Tooth are like the ones that I think would really rock out like a nice, or be able to like be the basis for a really nice pop chorus. And all really, really easy song, like phrases to work with. And I really suggest that if you are a songwriter or if you're looking to get into songwriting, like look at like the devices that our language has set up already, because a lot of that is applicable to songwriting.
Okay, good advice. So Noah, how did the pandemic change how you made music? Because you've still, in the last year and a half, you've still released a handful of videos, and you're still making content. So how did that pandemic change that?
Yeah, honestly, not a whole lot. For me in particular, it changed the industry 100%. People like were streaming less for a really, really long time because no one was commuting anywhere. But how did it change my process? Not really a whole ton, aside from like how it changed me as a person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I've definitely like had like a hard time this pandemic, and I feel like drained a lot of the time. So I've definitely been songwriting less, but other areas of creativity have also kind of like sprung up at the same time. So especially in like the marketing world, which is really, really nice, I've kind of like found new facets of digital entertainment with which to like use as channels of distribution in my own kind of like self the cat's getting into the line. Okay, there we go. Okay, of like self promotion. So getting really into like TikTok and like doing covers. I used to like hate like people who did covers because I just like never got it. I think I was like really pretentious in high school, and I was like, I write my own music or whatever.
Yeah.
I love doing covers now, and I do them on TikTok all the time. I just kind of like got over that phase.
Yeah.
And the pandemic definitely like pushed that, because it was like, man, I got nothing to do today. Let's like play the guitar and like, and I didn't like have a big part of like why I'm not writing as much as this year as I have in years past is like, what do I have to write about? I'm like massively influenced by like the experiences that I have in my songwriting. Everyone's had the exact same experience over the course of the pandemic, and no one wants to hear a stupid pandemic song. And so many people have put out pandemic songs. It like makes me sick.
Yeah, like the like Bored in the House, the TikTok song when it first.
That's fine, because that was like a just some kid like dinking around, and then like it went viral. Yeah, monetize that for sure.
Okay.
Make it a song, put it on Spotify, get your bag. But like, and that was like back when the pandemic was like a quirky thing, it was like back when like not the pandemic itself, but like back when like isolation and like it was like people were trying to find like, oh, this is my new hobby or like whatever. Which just like is a whole other thing we can get into. But for me, it was like definitely like slowed down my songwriting because I was doing the exact same stuff every day. It was like wake up and then go to bed, like putz around in your house all day and then go to bed. And the only thing you can like really get out of that is like maybe like a monotonous sad song. And I've got plenty of those. Other than that, like not a whole lot has changed. The process remains the same. Ross and I are still working together, writing and producing and all that different stuff. But yeah, I guess the music videos were like a little bit different than music videos in the past because, there's rules and regulations around the number of people you can have at one time. Everyone's got masks on except for when you're in front of the camera. Different stuff like that have definitely like been shifts and things that we'll definitely like look back on. Like we'll look back at this podcast and the video from it and be like, whoa, remember when we had to wear masks?
Yeah, most definitely.
But that's really all that has changed, I think, a whole lot in terms of like my creative process.
Okay. Are you antsy to perform live?
Yes. I was planning on doing like my senior year was when I finally had enough music to like put on a show. Mm-hmm. And I was really, really excited at the end of my junior year to play some shows that summer and get back to Lincoln in the fall and play some shows with like a full band and have it be this whole thing. And it just never really shook out that way because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So now more than ever, I'm like really excited to do stuff in front of like a live audience again. Yeah, just like Instagram lives and TikTok lives just do not cut it.
Don't do it. Yeah.
In terms of, I don't know, immediate feedback to the music that you're putting out.
As an indie musician, when do you expect to start planning like that first show?
This summer, hopefully. I feel like things will definitely start opening up as more folks are getting vaccinated. Mm-hmm.
I'm one shot in. Second one is early next week. So definitely get vaccinated so we can do stuff like
this. I'm a Pfizer baby.
Same here.
But both of those shots kind of kicked my butt.
Oh, both did? Okay.
Yeah, and I had COVID back in June.
Yeah, I had it really bad.
Me too. Yeah. So I was definitely like I was more than happy to get the vaccine because I do not want to deal with that again.
Yeah.
Oh man, what were you even talking about?
Shows.
Yeah, live shows.
And so this summer, hopefully, and my next, I guess my last question is, what is the next step of your music career? You mentioned moving to Nashville. Mm-hmm. What do you hope the move to Nashville accomplishes?
Yes, I think networking is definitely like a huge thing. You learn about that. You learn about that in business school too.
Most definitely.
But in the music industry, networking is like the name of the game. Mm-hmm. Really, it's so much more about who you know than almost anything else aside from like the music that you make. So obviously you need to be making good music. But I'm excited to go out to Nashville because there's just like this artistic prowess that comes out of Nashville. Like everyone who's there, I feel like is so good at what they do, whether they're instrumentalists that are just like that can just like shred, mm-hmm. or they're songwriters who just have all these hits, or all these co-writes, and that's like I'm really, really excited to like write with other people. Mm-hmm. I love writing with other people, and I think that's like a really, really great way to also meet new people, and especially new people in the music industry. So that's something I'm really, really looking forward to. What I hope it does for my artist career, just growth.
Yeah.
More exposure. In a city that is known for doing just that. That's known for ballooning artists and giving them more recognition than they had in the past. I think it's really, really hard to work out of Nebraska and like never leave Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
You look at big artists that have done that, or I guess big entertainers that have done that. I think of like Connor Oberst. He's someone I look up to immensely. He went to my high school. He came out of Omaha and now was like the face of like Midwest emo rock for like the longest time. And now he like is homies with like Phoebe Bridgers, who's like one of my favorite artists ever. And I definitely like look up to him. I know my music doesn't sound like his at all, but like I love his songwriting. I love everything he does.
What other are there any Nebraska musicians like on that list of
yes,
people you look up to?
And someone who hasn't left Nebraska and like has stayed true to her roots, Andrea Von Campen is like, I was like in love with her music in high school, and I still am. Like beautiful, beautiful, beautiful music, beautiful folk music. I love, love, love folk music, and Andrea knocks it out of the park, and she does so like very successfully too.
Mm-hmm.
And now she's an actress. She's like starred in like a feature film, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But she is still based out of Nebraska, and I think she built herself up like a really, really strong fan base, so she could go anywhere and be okay.
Yeah.
So I definitely like look up to her, but I think of like other people who also have like came up from Nebraska and left. I think of like Andrew Reynolds. He's like he's not so much like an artist, but he's a Broadway guy who's in like the Book of Mormon and stuff like that.
Okay.
But there's definitely like people that I see that have left and made it, made it.
Yeah.
And that's like those are like people that I look up to because I know that it can be done.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Noah, it was great talking to you this morning. Thanks for taking the time and to meet with us. And
for sure.
Yes, loved the episode. This conversation would not have taken place without a Novel Idea bookstore. It's where we recorded it, and Noah's recorded some music videos here.
That's right.
So a huge shout out to Novel Idea bookstore. It's a locally owned bookshop in downtown Lincoln. Thank you for listening to today's episode of The Commonwealth. We are a product of KZUM Radio and Hurrdat Media. The Commonwealth is produced by Hunter Bergman, social media productions by Ashley Hansen, and edited by Kyle Kua. We release episodes every single Monday, so hit that follow so you don't miss a beat. Sweet.
Nice. Oh, that was so well done.
Thank
Holy
you.
moly.
Thank you.
That was the best interview I've had ever.
Well, thank you.
That was
I
really, really,
that. No,
and I
appreciate
don't
that.
like say that every interview also.
Okay, well,
like that
you.
was a really wonderful interview with really great questions, man.
Thank you.